Hello coin collectors out there, welcome back to the Big D Coins channel. You might remember on Monday we talked about the 1965, 66, and 67 Roosevelt dime. The key takeaway for that video was that there weren't any mint marks being used for these 3 years due to a coin shortage. However, that all changed in 1968. So in today's video, we're going to talk about the 1968, except we're going to talk about the pennies in this video. So we've got 1968 without the mint mark representing the Philadelphia penny. We have the Denver Mint and the San Francisco Mint right here as well. 1968 was also an interesting year in Canada because they switched from the silver quarters to the non-silver nickel-clad quarters. So you can see this one right here has a date of 1968, and this one down here has a date of 1968. And to make things even more interesting, the United States moved all of the mint marks to the obverse side of the coin starting in 1968. So here's a nickel from prior to 1968. We see the D mint mark on the back right here. And then this one is after 1968, so we see D mint mark on the obverse. Now that does sound like a lot of information, so this video might run kind of long, but I think everyone will really enjoy it. And we'll zoom in on the individual coins so you can really get a good understanding of what they look like. And we'll talk about them one at a time. We'll start with the pennies, then go to the Canadian quarters, and then round it off with that nickel that we talked about with the moving of the mint mark to the obverse of the coin. Now, if you're new to the channel, please do consider subscribing. What we do here is we talk mostly about United States coins, but occasionally we get into the international coins as well. So if you're into coin collecting, I think you've found the right channel to check out on YouTube. Now let's get the lighting just right on these pennies. It's always a little bit challenging when you switch coins to get the lighting right on whatever coin you're looking at. So to recap what we're looking at right here, we've got 1968. Now the no mint mark will indicate that it's from the Philadelphia Mint. We have the Denver Mint mark up here and the San Francisco Mint mark right here. Now we talked in Monday's video about the really high mintages of the 1965, 66, and 67 Roosevelt dimes. To recap that, in 1965 there were 1.6 million, then 1.3 million, and then 2.2 million that were made of the Roosevelt dimes that you were looking at earlier. Then the next year in 1968, talking about these three Lincoln cents right here, the mintages were just as high for the Philadelphia and the Denver Mint, but we saw an extreme drop-off for the San Francisco Mint. So at the Philadelphia Mint, this one down here, we had 1.7 million that were made. At the Denver Mint, we had 2.8 million. Wow, that's an astonishingly high number that were made at the Denver Mint, 2.8 million. And then at the San Francisco Mint, any guesses on this one right here? Only 258 million. So from this one right here, 2.8 billion. This one right here was 1.7 billion, and then this one right here, only 258 million. So I might have said these ones were millions. These are billions right here, just to clarify on that. This one right here, just 258 million. Now 258 million is still a lot, but much less than this one right here. Now there are three different era coins that are mentioned in the Cherry Picker's Guide to Rare Die and Variety Coins. Let's talk about all three of them. So the first one involves the 1968D, which will be this coin right here. Get it into the center of the shot for you. So 1968D, the era coin associated with this one, is a repunched mint mark. So the secondary D is evident to the west of the primary D. So if you've got a microscope or a magnifying glass, it'll be even more helpful. But if you see another D that's just west of this primary D, see another like vertical line, now mine doesn't have it, but yours might, that will be known as the repunched mint mark. The bad thing about these repunched mint marks for the 1968D is that they are very common, so the value won't be too high. The good news is that they're so common that you might be able to come across one yourself. So this has long been a very popular variety and well known. There's also enough specimens available to meet current demand, which is keeping the values down for a relatively neat variety. The Cherry Picker's Guide has a price of this one for a mint state 65 at $25 compared to the non-error mint state 65, which would be valued at about 40 cents. So this one right here, repunched mint mark for the 1968D. Now let's move into, oh, this next error involves the 1968D as well. So this one is a double die reverse. So let's flip it over to the reverse side. And now we're going to be looking for doubling on this side right here. So when the die smashes into the planchet, sometimes it bounces a little, sometimes it smashes twice, and that creates the double die errors. So look for moderate doubling is evident on States of America, E pluribus unum, and the designer's initials. Increased publicity has popularized this variety, but few have been found. So the Cherry Picker's Guide has a price guide for this one of $250. So we just went 10 times in value from the 1968D repunch mint mark to the 1968D double die reverse. So $250 for a mint state 65. Again, that's compared to the same 40 cents for the non-error coin. Now 1968S is the third and final error of the 1968 penny series. So trying to get a good focus for you right here. So here's what the 1968S proof double die obverse. Now I don't have the proof coin, but imagine I did. So strong doubling is evident on the date, liberty, and in God we trust. This is another underrated variety according to the Cherry Picker's Guide, which has a PF price of PF 67 grade at $75. Now another key differential when you're looking up the price for non-error coins for these Lincoln cents is the red, brown, and the brown designation. So those are the different coloring that you'll see with the copper coins. Now copper coins originally come out more of a red color to them. So here is a 1967 that's got a lot of its original red to it. You can see that these ones back here are more brown. So if it's got 95 to 100% of the original red, that will grade at a red designation, which is abbreviated RD. If it's got 5 to 95% of the original red to it, that would get the red-brown designation, and 5 or less percent will get you just that brown designation. So these ones right here have or would get the brown designation if they were officially graded. Now that designation doesn't have to do anything with the actual scratches or kind of the strike of the coin. It just has to do with how the coloring of the coin has done over the years. So keep your eye out for ones that look more like this, that have the red coloring to them and are a nice clean cut, or keep your eye out for those 3 error coins that I mentioned. Other than that, the mintages on these ones right here are so high that they're not going to be worth very much money if they're in circulated condition like this. Now let's switch into the Canadian quarters, which came out in 1968. Now those of you who have been coin collecting for a while might be able to differentiate these two by kind of the naked eye, but any guesses on which one of these is silver versus which one is just your standard nickel? So to clarify earlier, these are nickel, not copper nickel. They're just pure nickel. Well, I guess I gave it away by pointing at it. But this one right here is nickel. This one right here is silver. Now, you can tell if you look at enough silver quarters, kind of the different coloring that you see between a silver quarter and a nickel or a copper nickel clad quarter. So this one right here has that silver coloring to it. The other way you can definitively tell which one is silver versus which one is nickel is that the nickel will weigh about 5.05 grams and the silver will weigh about 5.83 grams. Now the silver coin is 50% silver, so it's going to have a significantly more value than this coin right here. As far as the mintages for the 1968 silver coin, there were 71 million of them made. Compared to the nickel coin, there are 88 million of them made. So the mintages are almost even between these two coins right here, except this one right here clearly more valuable. So people are going to be holding on to this one right here and then just releasing this one right here back into circulation. And finally, the third feature that we want to talk about today. So to recap on the Roosevelt dime video that we talked about for 1965 to 1966-67, we mentioned that there was a coin shortage. People were hoarding a lot of the dimes, so they decided to remove the mint mark from them. They removed the mint mark from the nickels as well, and then they reintroduced the mint mark in 1968, and they moved all of the mint marks on all of the United States coins to the obverse, which is this side, the front of the coin. Some of them had been on the back like the nickel. So this one right here is dated prior to 1968. We're looking at a 1959 right here. And so we see the Denver Mint location right there. And then with this one right here, which is dated 1961, so 1968 or after, we'll see the mint mark on the obverse of the coin right here. So that's where you'll see the mint mark starting 1968 and going forward. Now that wasn't really a issue with the pennies, because the pennies already had the mint mark on the obverse, but some of the other coins had to relocate the mint mark to the front of the coin from the reverse, like the Jefferson nickel, which we were just looking at. All right, everyone, so to recap, let's talk about the many things we talked about in today's video. So we mentioned the mintages for these coins right here, very high, but the pennies were even higher. So we looked at 3 different 1968s. We got the 1968 Philadelphia Mint, which won't have a mint mark, the San Francisco Mint, and the Denver Mint. The San Francisco Mint has much lower mintages than the other two. These ones both have over 1 billion that were made. We talked about the different color designations. So this one right here is more red. This one right here is more brown. And we talked about the Canadian quarter. So the Canadian quarter switched from silver to a nickel metal content, base metal content in 1968, and they made both of them during that year. Thank you very much for watching. If you're still watching at this point, please do subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much, everyone, and best of luck coin collecting out there. Enjoy!